Hi everybody, happy Monday. We had a great week last week. I really enjoyed hearing all that you had to say on the Flipgrid discussion board. Let's take a look at a couple of things. Last week we were talking about using language as a resource. This was a review from the early weeks of the course. And just as a reminder, a lot of you had to say this on your discussion board responses, that this is really a mindset of teachers, schools, entire programs. A lot of people have a mindset that language is a problem and that we have to get past that first language in order to learn English, in order to have students learn English. But obviously, Mr. Wolf in the video did not have that mindset. He had a mindset of their first language being a resource to draw from, right? And so that mindset of the fact that students have come in with a lot of linguistic knowledge, a lot of content knowledge in their first language, and how we as teachers can draw on that to build content and language knowledge in the second language, which is English. And so really his project-based learning in his classroom was integrated with that mindset of language as a resource. So you saw him doing all of this project-based learning in his classroom, and he was using all of these linguistic tools in order to get those projects across, and he was using the projects in order to get the linguistic knowledge across. And so I would have loved to have been a student in his classroom. I don't know about you, but the way that he was teaching that science was so much more engaging than sitting down and taking notes or listening to a lecture. And so students who are learning a second language, it's very hard to sit and listen to a lecture for an hour or take notes, but being able to be engaged and be hands-on is much easier to learn that content and be learning the language at the second time. So in general, you guys did a great job with the discussion board this week. I really loved listening to your responses. So before you respond to this week's discussion board, I want to really encourage you to look back at chapter 11. That was the chapter in the book that we read that was a lot about translanguaging, because this week's discussion board takes us back to translanguaging just to make sure we really understood this concept. So just to remind you that translanguaging is not just translanguaging, or not just translating, not simply moving back and forth between the two languages, although both of these things do fall under that large umbrella of translanguaging. So you can think about translanguaging itself as kind of this large category and a lot of different things fitting beneath it. And so translating between two languages does fit underneath that umbrella. And so does that what we call code switching, moving back and forth, kind of when we speak Spanglish oftentimes here on the border. That fits underneath that large umbrella, but so do many, many other things. And so I want you to think about the fact that there's kind of two broad categories of translanguaging. There's those translanguaging practices that those of us who are bilingual naturally do on a day-to-day basis. So the things that we as bilingual people do to make sense of our world. So maybe, I think earlier in the course I showed you that picture of a chilindrina in my house way back in a video. And I talked about the fact that I don't have words for that Viernes Botanero, the fact that we on Friday nights in my house, we gather and we do this Friday night thing where we eat a bunch of junk food and we sit down and watch movies together. And that's a cultural practice in my house because my husband is from Mexico and that's what we do. But for me to explain that to my English-speaking parents in English is difficult because I have to go back and forth between the languages and between cultural practices in order to explain that. And so these are the ways that I draw on my linguistic repertoire as a bilingual person to make sense of my world. So those are practices that I as a bilingual person have. But there are also translanguaging pedagogical strategies that we as teachers can use to help build understanding in our classroom. And so those are all of those things that we do as teachers to make sense of language for our students. And so it might be that we read a book in English and we allow them to respond in a written form in their first language, in Spanish. That's a translanguaging pedagogical strategy, right? So we're allowing them to use both languages. Or it might be that we read a book to them in English and we're picking out the cognates as we go. And so we're using that translanguaging strategy to help them make meaning of that book in that second language for them. So there's many, many more, obviously, and we've talked about them throughout this course, but I want you to think about those different strategies that we've used and go beyond what it is that's just translating, because that's just such a tiny, tiny little piece of part of what translanguaging is. So look back at that chapter 11. I beg you again, because that one is just so full of so many different strategies. I really look forward to the discussion board this week. You're almost done, so hang in there. I know this is a week full of celebrations with your family and everything. Please stay safe, stay healthy. Take a couple days off here at Thursday and Friday so you can have some time to enjoy Thanksgiving with your family, but also do know that that project that that last project of the course is coming up on you, so don't leave it till the end, okay? So if you have any questions, do email me. I am working on the course this week and working on some other things for UTEP, so I will be around. I look forward to hearing from you, and take care, everybody. Bye.